Hey, it's Chad with White Dads Can't Jump. Wanted to do a quick review about my visit the other day to Universal's Epic Universe. So my wife, daughter, and I went on Tuesday, May the 6th for an annual pass preview day. So if you don't know what Epic Universe is, it's the newest park at Universal Orlando. So this is kind of being billed as the big attempt to take over the Orlando theme park market and kind of take a real big shot at Disney's dominance. So, like I said, we went as an annual pass holder. So we have the Premier Pass, which at the other two parks at Universal gives us free prime parking as well as free express passes after 4 p.m. So keep that in mind because I think that detail is going to kind of play a role into how we viewed Epic Universe. So first thing, we got there around 8:30 in the morning, and it was pretty easy traffic access. There wasn't a whole lot of people there yet because it was still a preview. So what this is going to be like in a couple weeks, I don't know, but I think it's probably going to be a little rough. We got in. The lands didn't open till 11, so we had a couple hours to kill. So we just kind of sat around. So when you get in, you get into what's called the Celestial Park, and it's just a big hub area where there's a lot of fountains. It's very Vegas feeling. It's supposed to be themed after some kind of starport, I guess. It's very large, very grand. There's a hotel at the back end of it. Then the first place that we went to was the Isle of Berk, which is themed after How to Train Your Dragon. So I hadn't seen How to Train Your Dragon until this last week. It was the first time I'd seen it. So it was fresh in my mind. And I will tell you that when you walk into that land, it is pretty impressive. It really looks like the movie has kind of jumped off the screen and you are right in there. The colors, the imagery, the force perspective is really on point. It's pretty amazing. And I would say by far that was the best of the four areas. So we checked that out. We went on a couple rides there, but I'll talk about the rides in a second. From there, we went over to Dark Universe, which is themed after the Monsters universe, the old Universal Monsters. And that was also pretty awesome. If you've seen the movie Van Helsing, it definitely felt like those kind of vibes in kind of a small Gothic village. The theming was really on point and it was really cool at night. We went back at night and they had some fog machines going and it was really top tier. Then we went over to kind of the big one, the marquee land is the Super Mario World or Super Nintendo Land. Sorry. That was very cool. You go up an escalator and it's like you're in a pipe and then you come into Peach's castle and they're playing the lobby music from Super Mario 64. So if you remember that game, that hit me with some nostalgia there. And then you kind of walk out into the land and it's themed after, it looks like one of the levels in Super Mario World, and there's a Bowser's Castle with Mario Kart, and then you kind of walk through the back there and you have a Donkey Kong land. And then lastly was the Harry Potter world, which in this park is just kind of Paris set. I believe this is themed to the Harry Potter and the Mystical Beasts or whatever it's called, the Fantastic Beasts series, which I haven't seen, so I couldn't really appreciate what was going on there. So for me, the lands were really, the theming was the high point of the experience because the theming was incredible to say the least. All the details were really well done. It really felt like you were immersed into the area. In terms of ranking, I said the Isle of Berk for me was the best one. I think it's because it's out of a cartoon, was easier to kind of transition to colors and the imagery, and they had the puppets or the animatronics of the dragons everywhere, and it was super cool. Then the next one in terms of ranking for me would have been the Dark Universe with the castle and the Frankenstein setting. The monsters was very cool. Mario Kart, or not Mario Kart, but Super Nintendo World just was very busy in terms of just so much going on. Like you couldn't really get a look at Peach's Castle because right next to it's a Piranha Plant, and then next to that is Bowser's Castle, and then next to that is Yoshi's Ride, and they just put in a lot of things in one small area, so it seems almost overwhelming because there's just so much going on. Like if you're in the Dark Universe, you can go to Frankenstein's castle and it looks like you're walking up to the castle, and you're walking through the village and it's very cohesive. Walking through Isle of Berk, it's the same idea from the movie. Like you can see the places and walk through it, but the Super Mario Land or Super Nintendo Land is just kind of everything's thrown together. It's colorful, it's interesting, but it's just, I don't know, it's not really my jam. And then the Paris part for Harry Potter is literally just Paris, so it's not as thematically interesting to me as Diagon Alley or Hogsmeade at Universal Orlando. So that's the good. So some of the rides. So just to kind of give you some context, we're definitely ride people, amusement park people. We've been to Cedar Point, Kings Island. We've had annual passes to both those places. We've had annual passes to Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Busch Gardens Tampa, SeaWorld, Orlando, Universal Orlando. We had Disney passes. So we like to think of ourselves as kind of theme park connoisseurs, and we've been to on every type of ride. And to be honest, the rides really weren't that impressive to any of us. Kind of their marquee rides, the Star Dust Racer is a twin racing roller coaster, and it's a launch ride and it's fun, but I mean, it just goes up and down. There's not that many elements. I mean, if you've been on Velocicoaster, I think that's a way better ride. If you've been on Cheetah Hunt, I think that's a better ride. If you've been on Iron Gwazi, I think that's a better ride. If you've been on Hagrid's motorbike, I think that's a better ride. I mean, I think just in the Orlando, Tampa area, you're looking at maybe top 5. I mean, SheiKra is better than that. I mean, I want maybe a top 7 ride in the Orlando, Tampa area. And then if you put it against Cedar Point rides or even Kings Dominions rides, I just don't think it really adds up. For me, the biggest disappointment, I think, just was based on the press and the hype, was the Mario Kart ride. The setup was cool. The theming was awesome. Bowser's Castle was really well done. The cars themselves look very cool, but essentially you just put on some visors and you have AR imagery that you shoot turtle shells at. So, I mean, the ride itself, you're almost not even paying attention to because you're trying to shoot the turtle shells at the people going by. And I just think it was a missed opportunity to have a really cool racer ride, roller coaster type situation themed with Mario Kart, and that was kind of a letdown. The other big marquee ride at the Dark Universe was the Monsters Unleashed. So this one had some technically amazing animatronics, had really good integration of the screen work. It looked very cool. It just wasn't an interesting storyline to me. It was just okay. I mean, I would go on it if I didn't have to wait for it, but it's not something I would go back and be excited to go for again. The other one of the rides we went on was the Yoshi ride at Super Nintendo World, and that might have been one of the worst rides I've ever been on. I don't know what they were even trying to accomplish. It was kind of like a people mover around Super Mario Land, but it was just, I can't imagine waiting for more than 5 minutes to walk on that. I would put the Cat in the Hat at Islands of Adventure well ahead of that. The other ride we went on was a Dragon Flyer at Isle of Berk. It seemed very much kind of like a carnival ride. It had independent wings that you could kind of spin yourself on, and it was interesting and cool, but it was like a 45-second ride. So that was a little bit of a letdown as well. Again, with Epic being on previews, we weren't able to get on everything. A lot of things were delayed. So we didn't get to go on the minecart at Super Mario or at Donkey Kong, and we didn't get to go on the Harry Potter ride, which I've heard pretty good things about. We did eat at one of the restaurants in the hub area, and it was pretty good. I mean, Universal, I get the fish and chips, and honestly, whenever I've had fish and chips at Universal, that's the only thing I get when we go. We usually eat at one of the Harry Potter locations, and fish and chips always the way to go. So if you're going to Universal, I highly recommend the fish and chips. Shows, we went to 2 shows. We went to a circus show at the Harry Potter World, and again, I haven't seen the Fantastic Beasts movies, but it was not good. Like, I would not recommend waiting for it. It was weird, and it felt like we were on a cruise ship kind of vibe to it. It had some interesting animatronics. It had some interesting screen work, but again, because I haven't seen the movies, I had no connection to anything that was going on, and I just didn't find it interesting. Now, we did go to the dragon show, the Untrainable Dragon, I think it was called, at the Isle of Berk, and that was really good. The animatronics were incredible. It was a short show. It had some good music. It was lively. It was upbeat. It was fun. So I'd highly recommend going to that. So just to kind of wrap up my experience there. So we paid $150 a piece basically to go thereabouts. Again, parking was free for us. We were on pass holder preview, so capacity was limited. So I cannot imagine what the capacity is going to be like when this place opens for real, because we waited probably 40 to 45 minutes per ride, and that was with a third of the park at capacity. And with the rides shutting down as often as they do, I can't imagine anyone's going to have an enjoyable time in a couple weeks. But the vibe of this place is basically Epcot to me. It's a place that you can walk around and have it very cool, because the lands are essentially kind of like World Showcase, where you walk to the back, you go to each country. It's personalized, it's individualized. Obviously, there's much on a much more grand scale, but that's kind of the vibe I get. So, I mean, I think if it's a place where you want to go and walk around and really immerse yourself in it, I think it's a good place. But if it's a place where you want to go thrill seeking, then I still think Islands of Adventure is probably your best bet if you're going to be on Universal property. And is this a Disney killer? Is this going to impact Disney the way that people had kind of speculated it might? I just don't see it happening because, like I said, there's too many shortcomings. There's not enough to do, especially once the crowds are going to get bigger. We were there from 8:30, or we were there from opening from 11 to 9. And again, with only a third capacity, we still didn't go on every ride. And for us, we're not day trip people. We go to Universal, we get there at 4 with our free express passes. We can go on all the rides by 9 o'clock. So our perspective is a little different. But to go all day, only go on 5 or 6 rides, sit through a couple shows, and eat in a 12-hour day, again with limited capacity, it's really just not our situation. I would take everything that you're hearing kind of with a grain of salt and experience it for yourself. But I would say overall maybe a 7 out of 10. I was really hoping for a 10 out of 10 because it's been a while since we've been to anything new, and I was a little disappointed, I'm gonna be honest, about what we came across. But I think it would be a fun place to go in a couple of years once they get all the kinks figured out. They kind of have everything situated, and you can kind of go and just enjoy everything that they have to offer. So yeah, if you go, put in the comments, let us know how you enjoyed it. I'll keep an eye out for our next podcast episode. See you on the flip side.